welcome, Greg. Okay, this next session is it's always a fan favorite. David DePaolo's vision for this next session is for us to get to know each other a little better. Makes us better at what we do. How better to do that than through storytelling? Isn't that right, Kristen?
It sure is, Yvonne. And returning again this year is Greg Mckenna from Gallagher, Bassett. He's emceeing this year. He does a great job of incorporating how David wanted this session to go. I think that every year we are working to make it just better and better. I don't think it can get better. And then it does. And then we got 2020 handed to us. I'm going to keep saying that because it's there. But we made sure it happened. Greg has done a great job at putting together a good flow for today. I think you all are going to enjoy these stories. And I think that, we couldn't do what we do without Greg. Greg, you put it together and do a great job.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Yvonne. We ready to get started with People's Choice 2020?
We are. We got a couple of minutes and we can roll in whenever you're ready. But, again, we appreciate your support, Greg, and the support of Gallagher Bassett. This has become, for me, one of the anchors of Comp Laude Day, and I look forward to it every year. So thanks so much for all that you do to make this happen.
Well, it's our pleasure to support, and there's a great group of people that have really come together to make this a really special event. So you guys give me the go sign, and we'll get started. I've got some opening remarks, and then we'll bring on each of our 6 presenters.
All right, you take it away.
Excellent. Welcome to everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. I wanted to start with a story, as we encourage all of us to do. So it was the spring of 2004. I got the assignment that no junior associate attorney in an insurance defense firm ever wants to receive. This was the dreaded plaintiff's case involving the key client's nephew. It was the kind of case you can't win. If you spend too much time on it, then your billable work, your work for the insurance defense side of the house suffers. But if you don't spend enough time on it, there's just no way to recover, and you're going to upset the client. And to complicate matters, the nephew was, how do I say it charitably, largely at fault for his own injuries. But there I was, young associate in charge of the case. So I set to work on it. I scared up some witnesses. I took the depositions. I pulled together some expert testimony. I was making an argument, gaining momentum, trying to get this thing to trial. But just as I would have done on the defense side, the defendant hit me with a solid motion for summary judgment. It was a hearing I'll never forget. It was the old Kane County Courthouse in Geneva. The distressed wood on the trial tables and the jury seats. I mean, they tell decades of stories. There we were. We're going back and forth. I was matching the points with the defense attorney, distinguishing the cases, raising facts from the record, pushing my theory of the case. Just then, the judge signaled us to pause, and he leaned back in the bench, and he drew in a deep breath, and he said, I'd like to thank both sides for their well-founded motion and briefs and arguments. But having heard the moving party and heard the response from the plaintiff, the court finds in favor of the defendant. I lost. I congratulated my opposing counsel. I thanked the judge. And as I started gathering my things from the counsel's table, I could see a man in the third row in the gallery. And he was sitting there quietly, somewhat solemnly, and I recognized him in an instant. I can still remember seeing his windbreaker with the insurance carrier emblem on the sleeve, and it was our insurance client. And the air fell out of my chest. I had to go talk to him, and I could see he was upset, at least emotional. And I immediately felt that I let him down and I let the firm down. And he got up and he came across the bar and he met me in the well of the court. And I said, I am sorry, sir. If I only could have, when all of a sudden he cut me off. He said, watching you argue the case, representing my nephew, standing up for him when few others do, I can honestly now tell him that we left it all in the court. There was nothing more we could have done. This is his wake-up call. In fact, had he prevailed, I'm afraid it would have done nothing more than embolden his irresponsible ways. So thank you. He shook my hand and he left the courtroom, and I'm standing there. I still think about that exchange and the ripple effect that it may have caused. And I learned a valuable lesson at that hearing, that every story has a hero, even if you can't see it right away. It just might be a matter of perspective. And in every such story, that hero arrives at that opportunity through a characteristic process or journey. And that's a journey we're about to begin together. It is my great privilege to join all of you here at the Comp Laude Gala, to share the stage with these presenters who are ready to inspire you and lead us toward a new horizon for this industry, and to once again honor the memory of David DePaolo with the 2020 People's Choice Awards. I've said this before, this event is fast becoming the most important session of the year. Today we'll feature 6 of our industry's most influential leaders telling their most powerful, heroic stories, each doing their part to help change the narrative of our industry. I will introduce you to each of them in turn, and each of our presenters will share their unique story. So listen intently. Ask yourself whether the storyteller has moved you. Did you feel the passion in his or her words? David understood that the acts of heroism in the stories we tell in our industry, sometimes the hero acts with grandeur. Sometimes it's a little bit more subtle. But in every case, we know that one person can change the lives of many. It was the noted literary scholar Joseph Campbell, I've got a copy of his book right here, who said, "A hero is someone who gives him or herself to something bigger." Professor Campbell chronicled the steps a hero must take during the course of the story, and he's identified 12 separate phases of character development to become and to create a hero in that story. And throughout today's session, we're going to navigate some of the key aspects of Professor Campbell's progression by featuring each of these 6 powerful stories. As you'll soon see, each of our stories is a composed, compelling, and complete thought about the energy it takes to make a positive impact in our industry. But as we step back, our stories today coalesced to depict the transformative process known as the hero's journey. The hero's adventure begins with a call to action. Something disrupts the comfort of the ordinary world and presents a challenge or quest that must be undertaken. Please allow me to introduce our first presentation, A World of Possibilities, A Need for Compassion, by Dr. Rima Hamoud. Dr. Hamoud is the AVP of Clinical Pharmacy at Sedgwick. Rima earned her doctorate of pharmacy from Ferris State University in 2006 and has 9 years of experience as a pharmacist. She's a board certified in pharmacotherapy and has experience working in a magnitude of settings such as communities, hospitals, and psychiatric centers. We begin our journey with Dr. Rima Hamoud.
Thank you, Greg. Growing up in a third world country and living in a joint family system, I was taught to appreciate the little blessings of life. I lived in a home with a grandmother who raised 10 kids as a single mom, and with a mom who was a young widow. I was taught early on the values of being a strong, self-sufficient woman. When I moved to the United States as a teenager, those values moved with me. Problem was that I didn't know much, did not know the language, did not know the people or the culture of my new home. But I knew one thing: I wanted to be in healthcare. I was too young, too poor, and too uninformed to get a job. But I knew I had to start somewhere. So I volunteered at a hospital besides enjoying the cafeteria food over there, I was able to get a crash course learning the language, the culture, and the people. At that time, we lived with my uncle in a small 2-bedroom condo in a blue-collar suburb outside of Detroit. I had a safe place to stay. I had a gig volunteering. Now all what I needed was a school to go to. Pakistan did one thing right, and that was teach me math and science at a much advanced level compared to my American counterparts. Therefore, at the naive age of 14, I was able to enroll as a senior in high school. While assisting with the care of my elderly mother, I noticed she was on a lot of drugs. She was fighting with multiple comorbidities, and her medication regimen was quite complicated. So I then had an idea to shift my volunteer from a transporter work to the pharmacy so I could have a better understanding of her medications and help her better. At the pharmacy, I started paying attention to the certain drugs my grandma was on and learned the pharmacology of those drugs to better understand how they affected her. This interest in medication and pharmacy led me to pursue a higher education upon graduation. I was only 15 years old when I started college, but felt privileged for the opportunity to get a higher education. My mom worked limited hours as a clerk, earning minimum wage, and my brother worked at the airport to support me. This was no easy task and only became increasingly difficult as this was during 9/11. After that date, so many things changed for all Americans, but we were especially affected. We were not spared of the backlash the Muslim community faced after 9/11. Family was laid off, and finding work was hard. Living, working, and studying under constant scrutiny and suspicion was not easy. But our family ties were strong, and our love for each other always kept us together. And all through it all, in some weird way, we felt more American. My family and school kept me sheltered and in a relative bubble. But bubbles burst. And as soon as I stepped into the professional world, the safety of school and the love of my family could not always be there to protect me. Being a Muslim woman of color, it was not difficult to get picked out of a crowd. You stick out, but not necessarily stand out. It is easy to get overlooked for your accomplishments, easily get stepped on for promotions or accolades. I have practiced pharmacy in multiple industries, from retail to hospital to the insurance industry. Only the names have changed. The challenges were often the same. I was fortunate enough to meet people who not only guided me through various aspects of life, but also provided me with the opportunities to succeed. I went to Ferris State Pharmacy School, which is a small town university in the midst of nowhere. Having been in the United States for only 3 years, I had only a vague understanding of pharmacy and not really aware how pharmacy works. In Pakistan, everything is over the counter. Volunteering at a drugstore to learn about my grandma's medication helped me a little bit, but I did not have the guidance that would have helped choose a career path. To help students who are in a similar position as I was, today I sit on the career planning task force for Ferris State University to help guide students to a pharmacy-specific career path, something I didn't have in graduate school. I lived with a grandmother growing up, moved to the United States and lived with my uncle, went to the pharmacy school and lived in a dorm. I always had a shelter, but never a place I could call my home. When I graduated from pharmacy school, the first thing I did was buy a house for my mom, a place she could live in peace and focus on other priorities of life. I never forget the look of pride and joy on my mother's face. Today, I help women build homes through Women Build, a Habitat for Humanity program, because I want that same feeling of joy and peace for every woman, for every mom, for every daughter. In addition to physical labor, and no joke, it is physical labor like, digging ditches and putting up walls, I recruit team members, raise funds, and secure corporate sponsorships. I worked as a retail pharmacy manager in a poor community while devoting my days off to a nonprofit clinic, assisting an underserved Hispanic community. After the birth of my older daughter, I accepted a position at a state-run psychiatric hospital, serving those with severe mental health disorder. Mental health and addiction carries a lot of stigma, and that is something my family has suffered from. My goal was to help people not only get over their illness, but also to be able to go back to their normal life. I have worked with immigrants, those struggling with mental health conditions, and diverse patient populations to not only find care, but also a place in society. I went through numerous hardships, but I was always backed by family support. People in Southwest Detroit do not have the same privilege. Lack of healthcare is one thing, but social support is a much bigger issue. Through Southeast Michigan Alliance for Addiction-Free Communities, I was able to help educate patients and providers on substance abuse and mental health. We created tools for the payers and employers to support their injured worker. And through my work at Sedgwick, I was able to further support these efforts through Provider Network. This year, in 2020, amidst this pandemic, many Americans are out of a job. Mental health claims are rising, and substance use disorder has spiked as well. Through my work, I'm given the opportunity to help people suffering from COVID, counsel them on their condition, and provide psychosocial support as they prepare to return to work amid COVID-19 crisis. I also support Hope Against Trafficking for Women, Forgotten Harvest, and Camp Casey, which is a fun experience for children who are affected by childhood cancer. And I also support our local parent-teacher association. Since COVID-19 shut down so many schools, I have helped pack food for those in need, assisted middle school students with reading through Zoom classes, hosted ice cream socials for the neighborhood kids, and raised money for children's community activities. Working hard and constant effort are a must if one wants to be successful. But seeking and accepting help, showing vulnerability, it is just as important. Be strong, be confident, and approachable are traits my family have instilled in me since I was a child. Being open to yourself and others helped me get over what assumptions my appearance make and able to show what was beyond the stereotype. I started as a volunteer transporter in a hospital, and 20 years later, I was appointed on a hospital board as board of directors at a local hospital. I'm a proud mother of 2 daughters, and I hope for them to not only learn from their mother's mistakes and accomplishments, but to also never give up, recognize your abilities, and follow your passion. Respect yourself so others will respect you, and when a need is recognized, step up and address the situation. And best of all, use your own hardships and experience to help others overcome theirs. Thank you. Thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you so much, Rima. We really appreciate you. There is a second crucial early step in the journey when the hero needs guidance. He meets a mentor who will give him an object of great importance, insight to help face the dilemma, wise advice or practical thinking or self-confidence. The mentor helps dispel doubts and offers strength and courage to begin the quest. Our next presentation, called Borrowing a Page from John Lewis's Playbook by Rafael Gonzalez. Now a partner at Caddy & Gonzalez, Rafael Gonzalez is one of the nation's foremost experts on the social determinants of health and issues related to Medicare and Medicaid services. Rafael is a proud graduate of Miami Senior High School, the University of Florida, and Florida State Law School. Over the past 30 years, Rafael has been recognized by U.S. mayors, governors, senators, and presidents on his work in Medicare reform. A distinguished member of our industry, Rafael was named the Magna Cum Laude Award winner at the 2019 Cum Laude Award in Gala. Here now, Rafael Gonzalez.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, Greg, for leading this wonderful, wonderful program every single year. It really is amazing how you are able to weave all of our stories into one message. So we're grateful that you continue every year to agree to provide this wonderful program and lead us through it. A lot of you who know me know that I am an immigrant, as Rima is, to this wonderful and amazing country. I was born in Cuba, and early on, escaping communism, traveled to Spain. We waited our turn in Spain to ultimately get permission to enter this amazing land of wonderful opportunity. Like every good Cuban family on the face of the universe, off to Miami we went. And Miami, it welcomed us with open arms. There was a community of people just like us, recent immigrants with family who just wanted to be here to work as hard as possible to educate their children and to provide those kids with a chance at life, a chance at freedom, an opportunity to become someone. loved growing up in Miami. Having had that background, though, I did not know a great deal about the civil rights movements, the details of it, and the personalities that were so instrumental in the rights movement. I did, however, have an opportunity in the fall semester of 1979 to meet John Lewis, the great, now late John Lewis. He had not yet become a member of Congress and had started to think about that. He knew several folks in the South Florida community, and one of them was our social studies teacher. So he agreed to come to our school, to our middle school, and talk to us about his experience, his day-to-day, his absolute courage to do some of the things that ultimately history tells us he was engaged in. I heard and I saw with my own eyes stories about what it meant to be a Black individual in the South in the United States. He talked very openly and very honestly about growing up in Alabama. And he watched Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on television and heard him on the radio talk about the civil rights movement and all of the components and all of the things and all of the activity that it was rendering throughout the country. John Lewis indicated to us that day that what he thought was missing was the activity of young people. And he wanted to so desperately to become a part of that movement. So he did what maybe only a 15-year-old kid would do. He decided to write a letter to Dr. King. He decided to ask Dr. King if he could become a part of this movement. He suggested to him that the movement needed young minds and needed young individuals and the energy of young folks. Dr. King, and I think he was as surprised as anybody, John Lewis was, Dr. King wrote back. Dr. King sent him a note indicating that he welcomed the opportunity to meet with him, and he also sent him a bus ticket to ride from Alabama to Atlanta, Georgia, to meet with Dr. King. The rest, as we now know, is history. John Lewis changed our country. He changed our world. And it began with a simple act of writing that letter. Ladies and gentlemen, I heard John Lewis that day, and I took that message. It was so profound for me that an individual with no resources, with no contacts, could dare write such a note, and that as a result of it, a life, a world would change. So I took those words from John Lewis that day and I made them mine. I put them in my soul. Little did I know that I would use the idea and his thoughts that same semester. Later on, in the fall of 1979, as we got later on to the fall semester in middle school, the most atrocious event that I lived through in Miami occurred. Arthur Mcduffie, who was a Black gentleman, native of Miami, had served this country in the military, was a insurance salesperson, was killed by several police officers, City of Miami police officers. The original report written by those police officers indicated that Mr. Mcduffie, riding his motorcycle that day, was speeding. The police officers followed, and Mr. Mcduffie did not stop. They pursued him, and as a result, he lost control, had an accident, fell off the motorcycle, and instantly was killed as a result of the accident. The coroner's office, the medical examiner's office, upon evaluating Mr. Mcduffie, disagreed with those contentions in those reports. The coroner's office indicated that based on the evaluation of multiple physicians, Mr. Mcduffie had been beaten to death. They found that some of the skull injuries were so significant that they were between 6 and 10 inches deep. So the conclusion of the coroner's report is that Mr. Mcduffie was murdered on this particular day by several blunt hits, trauma to the skull, to the head. Almost immediately, within just a few days of this, the police officers who originally signed, not all of them, but 3 of them, changed their story. And they did, in fact, indicate that they had followed Mr. Mcduffie. They were able to stop him. And once he got off the motorcycle, they took up his helmet, and that they had beat him to death. As you can well imagine, the city of Miami was in an uproar. It was absolutely horrific. The environment was dangerous. A lot of the officers, all of the politicians, all of those elected officials promised swift justice, considering the change in the testimony that had come about from the officers. Unfortunately, it took about 5 or 6 months before the case ultimately went to court. They removed the case from Miami to Tampa because of the potential danger. An all-white, all-male jury found the 3 police officers that were charged not guilty. Immediately upon that news reaching Miami, there were uncontrollable behaviors all throughout the city. I can tell you that for the next 3 days, about 18 folks were killed, 370 individuals were hurt, almost 800 folks were arrested. At the end of it all, more than $100 million worth of property damage, the largest incident of this kind in the history of our country at that time. I lived just a couple of miles away from where this was happening. I could see the light of the fires. I could hear the explosions, cars on fire. I could smell the burn. I can smell houses and the businesses burning. My city was burning. My country was burning. The city and the country that had welcomed us with open arms. This wonderful and amazing land that had given us this incredible opportunity was burning. People were frustrated, people were angry, people were desperate. I'm 15 years old. I have no voice. I have no power. I have no means. I have no resources. But I knew that I had to do something. Ladies and gentlemen, I reached just earlier in that semester, and I found the words of John Lewis. I found the deeds and acts of John Lewis. So all I knew is that tennis, of all things, I had been teaching tennis for the City of Miami Parks and Recreation for 3 years. It was a wonderful sport. I not only taught folks how to hit forehands and backhands, but it gave me the opportunity to speak to the communities. And on this particular day, I decided I want to use tennis to talk to my city again. I thought about who out there could help me. And the only Black tennis player that I knew of was Arthur Ashe. He had won a 1972 US Open, 1968 Wimbledon. I literally took a piece of paper, remember the 3 holes, the lined paper in our notebooks, and I wrote a letter to Arthur Ashe. I literally explained to him exactly what I've explained to you. My city, my country was burning, and I have to do something. I need help. Will you help me, please? Only a 15-year-old kid would have thought that, of course, he's going to answer the letter. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 weeks later, in my mailbox, I arrived a note from Arthur Ashe. The note indicated, don't give up. Even when things look darkest, don't ever give up, especially when you're doing right. Along with that note, ladies and gentlemen, there was a check attached to it, a check for $1,000. I immediately ran to the city Parks and Recreation folks, and of course, I told them what I had done. Their first reaction was, "You've done what? You wrote to who?" They took the letter, they took the check. A couple of days later, they called me to the city office. And what happened next changed my life. It's changed my thoughts about the entire world. The city folks told me that it had taken a 15-year-old kid to make them realize that this is exactly what we needed to do. So the city committed to spending thousands of dollars to buy over 10,000 tennis rackets and tennis balls and t-shirts. The county committed to letting us use the International Tennis Center. That's where the professionals would play all of their tournaments. The Boys and Girls Club committed to providing us transportation so that we could take the kids over to the International Center. Organization after organization provided us assistance, help any which way they could to make this kid's dream come true, to be able to reach out to our affected community and to talk about what was happening to us. For the next 7 years, it provided me the opportunity to visit all of the communities in Miami, especially those that were minority communities. And along with, hitting forehands and backhands, every clinic ended with an opportunity to communicate, to talk, to openly exchange, and to hear their frustration and their anger and how, as a community, we had failed them. It also provided us the opportunity to talk about their hopes and their dreams and their aspirations. It was, like I've already said, a life-altering type of experience. I am happy to tell all of you today that of the thousands of kids that I worked with throughout those few summers, 2 of them have become doctors. 5 of them are lawyers today. 10 of them work in the insurance industry. 16 of them are nurses. 22 of them are teachers. I have very, very little to do with that. I am so incredibly grateful and so honored to have been able to be a part of their lives. We have now celebrated the 4-year friendship. And I say that because in the middle of the summer, on May 26th of 2020, almost exactly 40 years to the day when the Mcduffie trial was over and this horrific nightmare began in Miami, George Floyd was killed by police officers in our country. And all of you saw what happened this summer. This time around, it just wasn't the Black community. This time, Black, white, brown, Hispanic, Asian, men, women, everybody took to the streets. Everybody showed up. Everybody had a voice in making sure that we all were congruent in the message that this has got to stop. Our cities, they're still burning, folks. Our individuals, our communities, they are still angry and frustrated, and they're still suffering. But I want to leave you with the words that meant so much to me from Arthur Ashe. Don't ever give up. Even when things look the darkest, don't ever give up, especially when you're doing right. So I want to use this opportunity to encourage all of you to be the rudder, to be the voice, to push, to show up, to volunteer, to engage, to be active, to vocalize your concerns. It's time. We have to eradicate racism. Cannot exist in our country anymore. Thank you all so much.
Rafael, thank you for that personal and incredible story. We appreciate what you've done for us. Once the hero heeds the advice of his mentor, he's ready to meet his call of adventure and begin his quest, whether it be physical, spiritual, or emotional. At this point, he crosses the threshold between the familiar world and the unfamiliar world. When the threshold presents itself, the hero decides to decide and commits himself to his journey and whatever may come his way. Please allow me to present you with Tragedy to Triumph by Steve Ertzman. Steve is the founder and CEO of Shamrock Prosthetics, an organization setting the standard in patient care, clinical relations, and custom prosthetics for amputees. Steve directs the strategic leadership team at Shamrock. He holds a bachelor's degree from Boston University, where he was the captain of the men's basketball team. In 2011, Steve was named to the Atlanta Business Chronicle's 40 Under 40 list of business rising stars. And in 2017, he earned the Georgia State Board of Workers' Compensation Annual Spirit Award, and he is a member of the State Board's Medical Advisory Committee. We are pleased to introduce you to Steve Ertzman.
Thank you, Greg. And hello, Comp Law Nation. It's an honor to be a part of, 5 other unbelievable speakers that have unbelievable stories. But I guess I should start with mine. For the first 29 years of my life, I chased fame and fortune. I thought that's what purpose was in my life, and I thought that's what defined me. I was captain of Boston University's basketball team. I had some bigger jobs at some corporate global brands, and I thought that was life, just chasing the dollar. But everything completely changed on April 25th of 2001 when I was in a work-related motor vehicle accident. See, I was going to a meeting at a fast food restaurant, work meeting to meet some other colleagues, and you have to walk through the drive-through lane. Well, while walking through the drive-through lane, being 6'6", I'm no small object, a young kid was learning how to drive. He stepped on the gas instead of the brake and smashed me in another vehicle. It crushed both my legs, crushed my right leg the worst. Throughout that time, I had 13 surgeries, limb salvage wise, for my right leg. And that was the darkest time of my life. It led me to a below the knee amputation, was a 13th surgery, but it was during those 13 surgeries in a year of time that was the darkest. You see, at every surgery I had, I got a script. And it wasn't a script that you read from, it was a script that you take to the drugstore, or my case manager did. And it was a script for Oxycontin. And I chewed Oxycontin because I couldn't accept, being an ex-college athlete, I was always on the go. And being a corporate executive, I was always on the go. But I couldn't accept what my legs were as far as pretty mangled and now a right leg below the knee amputee. So in chewing those Oxycontin like they were Skittles, it led me to some real dark times in trying to jade my mind of what reality is. I couldn't accept it. Those dark times, and Oxycontin is a powerful drug, we're starting to contemplate suicide. Because our quality of life is measured on how functional we are. And when you're not functional, your quality of life doesn't increase, it significantly decreases. So contemplating suicide, I would say for probably a month of starting to plan, discuss amongst myself. I wasn't talking to anybody else about it. But I finally had the realization that I want to challenge myself, thank God, and give me 2 options. First option was I could end things very easy. I could find a bridge. Second option is I can actually do something with my life, and I can learn from this experience. I can actually make a difference, and it can be beyond me. So I chose the latter, thank God, and that's why I'm in front of you guys today. But over the past 12 years of being an amputee, I really have looked at how patients should be communicated to, the patient experience, the quality of the prosthetics, the journey that they go through. And 6 years ago, I started Shamrock Prosthetics because my first 12 years as a patient and understanding the whole O&P community, again, I wanted to learn from the experience that I had and the mental challenges, physical challenges I had throughout those 12 or 13 surgeries. And I told you I want to do something with it. So 6 years ago, I started Shamrock. And Shamrock is completely different. It's the uncommon to the common industry. Reason being is the first thing that we like to see, myself and I have 2 other amputees on staff, is we like coaching the mental side. We get texts from docs that say, I need you to go see this patient because they need an amputation, and we want you to deliver that message. Well, think of it. A doc walks into the room and says, your arm or leg is mangled, and you need an amputation that's happening tomorrow, and then leaves the room. What would you think if a doc did that to you? Horrifying, fear, crying, tons of emotion. Enter Steve. I walk in scrubs, or my two other amputees that do the same, and our kind of journey is that we don't talk about being an amputee. We engage their mind and try to navigate their fears and really get a sense of where they are mentally with going into this amputation. And at some point, we're going to have kind of an aha moment. And that is that all of their beliefs aren't what our reality is as amputees. And then it becomes a game changer where now all barriers are down. All trust completely increases. And all respect is earned. You see, I look at this as far as the new amputee as 95% mental. The rest of the O&P industry sees that patient after they're healed. Well, that could be 4, 6, 8 weeks. A lot can happen before that time in your mind. The mind's a great asset, but can also be a horrible villain. So in seeing that patient before surgery, either myself or my two other amputees, everybody has my cell phone. It's something that this is 24 hours a day for me and my other two patient advocates. That's a little distraction. Sorry about that. But it's taking from my experience, it is something that is the most important aspect is coaching, teaching, kind of crafting and helping craft that person's mind by giving them a sense of hope. They have a sense of hope. They're actually my goal in seeing that patient before surgery is to actually get them excited. I know it sounds kind of crazy where if you lose a article of your body, you're about to lose it. How can you be excited? But it's because they're seeing somebody that's actually doing something with it, completely doing anything I want to do. So are my other amputees, and so are my patients. So the way Shamrock looks at things is a mind-body approach. When that patient's healed, then they're turned over to my clinical director and his clinical team. But the uniqueness of how we look at things is to make sure we focus on really the authenticity of seeing that patient on that initial journey from the mental side. So I guess if you look at it, my story is really Shamrock. It's a journey that I've been on, but it's beyond myself. I started off my talk by saying I thought everything was about fame and fortune. And I thought that's what drove me. And I thought that's what purpose was. But in essence, Shamrock dimensionalizes my purpose. It's something that I have the daily challenge, and I'm blessed to have this, to help influence a person that is about to have an amputation and look at it from a different perspective and be accessible to that family, no matter what time of the day or night, to help them on their journey. I thank you for allowing me to talk today. Greg, I think you're doing a heck of a job as the MC, but I thank Laude, Gallagher Bassett, and all the other sponsors, and I can't wait to hear the other speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Steve. The next step in the hero's journey involves something called the inmost cave. This may be an actual solitary location or a novel inner conflict. The hero uses this time and place to reflect on his journey and the treacherous road ahead. This brief respite helps the audience understand the magnitude of the ordeal that awaits the hero and escalates the tension in anticipation of the ultimate test. In our next presentation, Life Lessons During Coronavirus, 8 months that helped me re-anchor to my North Star, David DePaolo will help us reset our compass as we prepare for what's next. David Vittoria is the Senior Vice President of Clinical Business and Product Development at Caris Partners, a risk transfer and care coordination company. David is a licensed clinical social worker. A published author, David holds a master's degree in social work and a bachelor's degree in the same discipline from Florida International University. Here now, David Vittoria.
Thank you, Greg. What an awesome series of resonant topics this year, and such an exceptional group of like-hearted colleagues with whom I feel just so privileged to share this space today. Great people, such powerful stories centered around positivity, around personal and collective strength, around healing and hope, all reminding me today and every day, especially over these last 8 months, about what really matters, not just in work comp, but in life. You know, maybe like me, no matter where you're at today geographically, no matter your position, your company, your individual experiences, nor the burdens of scarcity, anxiety, fear, or loss that may have befallen you these last many months, no matter your race, your religion, your politics, no matter all of these things by which we sometimes define ourselves, and by virtue of that perspective, define others as well, whoever and wherever you are today, you matter. So I shared these 8 lessons from the last 8 months with you as a message about what has sustained me, but even more so, and I think more importantly so, a validation of your power and potential as the colleagues, the coworkers, the friends, the heroes to me, who serve so often as enduring examples and heroic ambassadors of these guiding principles. These actions have reminded me about what really matters, and they've been my North Star. First among these lessons is the need for me to do what I love. My mission changed, like all of ours did, almost daily throughout this pandemic, from finding paper towels to finding my old friends, from relocation to oftentimes wavering motivation. But what has remained constant for me, and what I propose for all of us as our non-negotiable, is our purpose. You know, believe in something big, even when the opportunity seems small. Know that your life, like mine, is worth a noble motive. And nobility comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes, right? My primary purpose, in whatever small way it might manifest, is to ease suffering. What's yours? And whether it's the losses so many have suffered, or the time that now seems simultaneously fleeting and also interminably slow some days, you know, I'm reminded not to wait until later today or tomorrow or next week to take some meaningful action that might help me or a patient or a colleague or one of my friends. You know, if we've been reminded of anything this year, it's that time and people are so very precious. So I started running every day again, you know, going back to write in this gratitude journal right here, practicing daily meditations, calling my sister every time I think about her because she's really sick, making amends immediately when I'm wrong, which is often, having date night every week, even if it's on the back porch, and telling my kids every day how much I love them. Not out of doom or despair, but out of love and urgency and necessity. When I think about my North Star, that kind of focal point that drives my direction and my determination, I've reflected a lot lately about how much weakness has governed so much of my life, how much time I've spent and energy I have expended in a half a century on this planet, you know, focusing on fixing what is seemingly wrong with me to try and make things more or better or different in some way. Even I, unlike Rima, the guy who was taking pre-algebra in 11th grade, even this guy knows that the math there does not add up. You know, I can't spend a bunch of time feeding negative thoughts about what might happen during this pandemic, you know, that add in some fear and powerlessness and somehow expect a positive sum to come from that. So, you know, if you're like me and have to be reminded every so often that it's your strengths, your talents, those positive things that are right about us that enable our growth, even in the toughest of times, then know your strengths, be proud of them, share them with the world through whatever ways they naturally manifest for you, whether it's kindness or empathy or generosity or humor or courage, compassion, or just a listening ear. Because like all of my colleagues here this afternoon have shown me through their service, their strength, and their sacrifice, sometimes the most heroic thing that we can do is share our story with the world and hope it makes a difference. Another thing these last 265 days, but who's counting, has taught me is about the importance of communication. Not just the burdens and the necessity of connection, any way we can get it nowadays, but the ways in which we have had to get creative with how we do it. Because we have more ways to see each other and talk now, right? Whether it's through Zoom or GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar or Teams or Ring Central or some other platform, all that, but we've been kind of hampered in our efforts to leverage those other essential ingredients to effective communication that we're so used to, like proximity, or physical touch and body language and eye contact that is shared in the same physical space. So I've made it a point to pay even more attention to the words that I use, because they still, and they always matter. And today, I think they probably carry some extra weight. I'm mindful of and respectful about other people's time and energy flow more than I've ever been. So I regulate my tone and I modulate my volume to emphasize crispness and clarity. And I try my best to say what's real, because those precious people and their precious time deserve nothing less than the most valuable of resources, which to me is authenticity. I thank my mom for always telling me to be me. She said, be you, David, because everyone else is already taken, she would say. And I've thought of that and her authenticity, her strength, her struggles and sacrifices that she made for our family. And I've thought of my mom every single day of the last 192 days since she passed. And we're really whole and genuine when we're acting in a way that's in congruence with our most cherished possessions, which are our values, right? I mean, before this pandemic, I could have easily listed those for you: service or empathy, compassion, curiosity, integrity. But I pay more attention now to how I'm bringing those values into play and really integrating them into my life now on a daily basis. And one of the ways I do that, as silly as it may seem to some folks, is I color code the events on my work calendar by the connection those activities have to a particular guiding principle that I can bring into play maybe during that call or that team meeting or webinar or clinical conference. So like purple on my calendar equals compassion, and green is for growth and clarity. Orange is for warmth and empathy and so on. And safe to say the second half of my day today is all blocked off in green and orange, which is awesome. Now, look, some of this sounds great, but how do we strive to be our best selves while remaining socially distant? Well, for me, it's reminding myself that social distance does not mean emotional distance. So I strive today to forge connections with important people in my work and in my personal life, that allow me and allow us to relate based on our shared experience over the last 8 months. I ask people how they're doing, and you know what? Now I listen for their answer, not just think about something awesome I'm going to say when they're done. I let people in my life know that I have heard them when they say they are struggling, and I offer that same courage in what I share with important people in my life so they can feel good about showing up to support me when I need it also. I mean, most of us just want to be heard, right? We want to be heard, and despite all the limitations we're faced with today, we want to be able to genuinely feel good, don't we? Well, one way I do that, which keeps me aligned with what really matters, is I celebrate my victories every day, even the tiniest ones. I keep this journal, which is really just a composition notebook that costs like $1 at Staples, and I write at least one thing in it every day. And my last name is written on it, not because I'm going to forget my name, although that might not surprise some people if I do it, but because Vittoria actually means victory in Italian. So this is as much a victory journal as it is for gratitude. And you know what? Sometimes my greatest victory is just being able to show up in the life of someone who I care very much about and maybe try a little bit to lift them up, whether it's with a text or a call, or maybe it's an email or a handwritten card. Who does that nowadays, right? Maybe it's a Bitmoji of me popping out of a Thanksgiving cornucopia, whatever, because I know how much that helps me, and it makes me feel good when I can support another human being, maybe even with a little laugh. So these are the lessons that life has reminded me about over the last 8 months: to investigate and constantly rediscover my purpose, to initiate and start right now because we do not have time to waste anymore, to activate my strengths, truly communicate with the world by saying what is real, integrate my values into my daily life, even my calendar, relate by making meaningful connections at every possible turn. I remember to celebrate those victories every day, even the little ones that may not matter to anybody else but me. And I try to illuminate someone else's life by shining a light on what's great about them and helping others to win whenever I can. Thank you for allowing me to share this time with you today, to connect with so many friends and colleagues and all of you heroes that inspire me every day, and to do something that's actually pretty neat, which has been to honor every one of these 8 guiding principles and do it in less than 8 minutes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to you too, David. Victory. The road back. The road back in the hero's journey is the reversal of the call to adventure. The hero must return home, but this time with the renewed power. The hero's journey is not over yet, and he may need that one last push to get back into the ordinary world. This represents the moment before the hero must finally choose between his own personal objectives and that of a higher cause. We present Half a Man Took a Whole Challenge by Dr. Bradley W. Gronke. Dr. Brad is a talent and acquisition manager at Gallagher Bassett, where he helps our people identify opportunities and build on their strengths through inclusive engagement. He holds a doctorate in education from Governor State University, an MBA from Lake Forest School of Management, and a master's degree in social justice from Lewis University. He is an adjunct lecturer at Benedictine University. He holds a certification in litigation management from CLM, a CPCU, and an associate in claims from the Institutes. A 20-year career claims veteran, he has taken him from being a med-only adjuster all the way up to a branch manager and beyond. A member of the Illinois Medical Emergency Response Team, Dr. Brad is also a certified paramedic. It is my privilege to welcome Dr. Brad Gronke to the People's Choice stage.
Thank you all for having me here today. Time is a gift, and I appreciate you giving me that gift for a few minutes today. I'm sure we're all ready to leave 2020, the election, the pandemic, more and more, and take the leap into 2021. But come back with me for a minute to May 9th, 2004. At that time, I was wearing a size 56 sport coat and a 48-inch waist, all on a 5'10" frame. No, really, I was. That was me, pushing around more than 300 pounds off the ground with each step I took. Now, on a typical day, if you ask me how I'm doing, I won't respond with, "I'm fine." I always respond with a real emotion, usually awesome. People ask me all the time, why am I so positive? One word, hope. I give hope because I have an abundance of it. Have you ever felt helpless, defeated, alone? Me too. It doesn't sound like a very positive story, does it? If we can share a small bit of inspiration, though, with someone, it can give them hope. Hope. Hope is a very powerful life force. Perhaps the force that drives us to persist in the face of insurmountable odds. I've always thought of myself as someone that had the potential to influence others, but never thought it would be through my physical appearance. I was always the big kid. Then, later in life, even had the nickname, the Big Kahuna. I was actually an athlete in high school and college on the men's swim team. Just imagine for a second, more than 190 pounds in a Speedo. No, on second thought, don't do that. Like many other people, I ate as a coping mechanism through my mom's first diagnosis with cancer, getting into college, and my parents' divorce. I never realized it at the time. No one ever said anything to me about my eating habits, or I was just not listening, even to my own body. I'd have horrible pain sometimes, and eventually it got to a point where I could not even get on a bicycle. I broke down and literally cried. I was defeated. I didn't know what I was going to do. My own mom had weight challenges in life, like a lot of our injured workers do, and comorbidities that are not uncommon to our claims, along with her first cancer diagnosis, which included hypertension, prediabetes, and sore joints. I didn't want that to be my future. But what was my true inspiration to change? My desire, my life's partner desire, my wife, was to have a baby. I wanted to make certain that I'd be around for my future son or daughter. The journey was hard. One of the most challenging things I've ever done. Exercising every day. If I had the flu, too busy, didn't feel well, it didn't matter. I still did exercise. I looked at the ingredients in everything I was putting into my body. I even got tested for allergies. No surprise, I had some, but I never gave up. It took 5 years. No, it didn't happen in 30 days, 90 days, not even in months. It took years. Consistency, dedication, quality. These are values that we talk about in our own organizations all the times, and they were the keys to my success. In 2004, remember our journey back, I was 320 pounds. In 2009, 5 years later, I was 172. And by 2012, I was actually down to 148 pounds. It was then that my sister-in-law started affectionately calling me manorexic. I didn't quite like that term either, not any more than Big Kahuna. I needed to rebuild muscle and came back up to 168 pounds by 2016, where I've stayed ever since. In 5 years, I lost an entire person by weight and by soul. I was changed. At my 10-year wedding anniversary, my wife's jazz band that played at our wedding returned to play again. And the band leader, Doug, turned to me and asked if I was Brad's younger brother. The weight loss and the health I enjoy now, able to get onto a bike and go for a 9-mile ride with my 14-year-old son feels incredible. Running 5 or 10 Ks for charity, walking 60 miles in 3 days to raise money to fight breast cancer so less people have to feel the pain of losing their own mothers. These are reasons why I lost the weight. But the biggest reason was actually so I could inspire others. I've always wanted to help people, which is why I started in the insurance industry in the first place, right out of paramedic school. We have the greatest industry in the world, being able to put people's lives back together. I have some amazing people in my life that I've been able to help just by listening to them and encouraging them, like Cliff. He's in his 50s and lost more than 50 pounds in 2 years. Best shape he's ever been in. And Sandy, there on the picture, she is the little sister of my best friend from grade school. She's in her late 30s and lost more than 30 pounds in less than a year. Incredibly committed. And then there's a dear friend and colleague of mine, Karen, who's shared with me she's lost more than 19 pounds during the pandemic. Unbelievable. And there's many, many others. Sharing my story, I hope to inspire you to show you that it can be done if you need it. The numbers on the scale don't matter if you're healthy. You are beautiful just the way you are. Billy Joel got that one right. But if you need to drop a little or a lot of weight so you can be healthy, have more energy, and be around for your loved ones a bit longer, just know you can do it. Be an inspiration to others as well, including your injured workers, and help others in a whole new way. Give others the most incredible gift you can: hope.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you very much. We're reaching the resolution of our hero's journey. The final scene always represents something greater than the hero herself. It almost feels like the outcome of the entire struggle will have a far-reaching consequence on the ordinary world. The hero and the audience both feel the weight on her shoulders as they wage that final battle and return to the ordinary world, which has now been changed for the better. Our final presentation is How to Get a Horse to Drink the Water. A Foster Child Takes on the Industry by Claire Musselman. Claire is the Director of Workers' Compensation at Continental Western Group, a Berkeley company. She holds an AIC, AIM from the Institutes, a bachelor's degree from the University of Iowa, a master's degree in public administration, and specialist in education from Drake University, where she's now an adjunct professor. Claire is pursuing her anticipated doctorate in education from Grand Canyon State University. Claire is the ambassador for the Iowa chapter of the Alliance of Women in Workers' Compensation and is the new co-host of Adjusted, a claims podcast. Take us home, Claire.
Thank you, Greg. And thank you to everyone who shared your stories. They are amazing. And to share the stage with you guys words won't ever explain my gratitude for being here today. So I'm standing here before you guys to close out the Heroes portion of People's Choice Awards. And the only reason that I am here is from my fantastic family called the Workers Recovery Unit at Continental Western Group. This group was founded back in 2017 when I first came to Continental Western. And on our 1-year anniversary, I was sitting with one of our leaders, Lori Bowen. And Lori, I hope you're out there today because this made the biggest impact on my life thus far. Lori and I are sitting in a conference room in our room 300, and it's a big windowed room, conference room with probably 12 chairs that sit around the table. And in this time period, I looked at Lori and I said, hey, why did I create this? I said, what's the why? I know the purpose. I know we're here to make good things happen for injured workers. Like, we are here to challenge the industry of what you've always done is not working anymore. We are not a checkbox life cycle anymore. We are here to impact human beings and make amazing things happen for them. And Lori grabbed my hand and looked at me with the most kind eyes I've ever seen. And she said, oh, honey, you built your family. You don't have a family and you built one here. She's not wrong. So I'm going to take you back. So I was born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa at Mercy Hospital so many years ago. And this is my bear that I'm going to keep with me through this because I went through 4 foster families before I ended up with my adopted family. And during those time periods when you're young and there's all of the talk about how you formulate bonds with people, especially when you're a baby, of having that loving, nurturing soul that comes through. I had 4 families before I hit my family. And so the word family is very different for me. I didn't have those bonds. I didn't have that feeling of I belong here. These people are my people. And so going through those 4 foster families and finally being adopted into a family, it was not exactly what the world would love you to think of how you go through the system. And if you are someone who's adopted out there, I see you, I hear you, and you matter. It does feel different. It does feel different. It's very hard to be adopted into a family and be expected to feel something in a certain capacity. And then on the flip side, if you come into a family later on in life and you're not, and you're blood, but you have 0 life experience, that's also a very challenge too. So anyone that's out there listening that's adopted, I see you, I hear you, you matter. So I get adopted into this family, and after bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and I get into this house, my adopted mother was like, we got to do something about this. The industry is broken. We should fix it. And she joined a group called Resolve that worked with Terry Branstad, who was a recent governor in Iowa and was also a governor back in the 1980s. And she helped him try and change the system because she knew something wasn't going well enough that this shouldn't have happened the way that it did. So thank you to Mom for always challenging the status quo back in the day. So my mom is out at a Resolve meeting one night. I am 2.5, almost 3 years old. This is a picture a couple days before the incident. Hopefully you guys can see this. So I have one of those awesome bowl cuts, and I hope you all remember those, because if you are my age or a little bit older, you'll understand like that was like the thing. We had those bowl cuts. So my mom is at a meeting, and my dad happens to be an alcoholic, and he is left with the responsibility of taking care of me for the night. And we've already showered up and everything. And I'm wearing this mint nightgown, like it reminds me of Little Mermaid, because it's that mint green with that beautiful pink lotus flower that has like a little pocket in it that when I lost my teeth, I used to stick my teeth in it. So very special night. Dad's making me banquet chicken. So again, if you're back in the 80s, everyone remembers the banquet chicken box. It's red. And I got banquet chicken that night. I was so excited. So I am sitting eating dinner. My dad's at the sink doing dishes. My dad, you know, it's the 80s. So dad's shirtless. He's wearing these burgundy brown, like running shorts. So they're the short running shorts with the white piping on them. And I go to take a bite of my chicken and I realize it's cold. So I hop off the chair and I walk over to my dad and I start tugging at his shorts. She's like, Dad, the chicken's cold. Dad's a few beers in. Dad's not overly excited to be home alone with me, and Dad's not overly excited that I'm bothering him at this point. Dad picks me up and chucks me under the table. I end up cracking my head open, and I'm going to try and show you guys this, but there is a scar within here, and it's about 2.5 inches long from when I was little. My very first childhood memory is waking up with 6 doctors and nurses surrounding me, repairing my head. Adopted family, man. Life's cool. So we get home that night, and after my dad had put me in the car seat on our way to the hospital, and he was adamant about cleaning up the blood because this is a big issue, and my mom's going to be so angry when she gets home. So I sat in the car seat for 2 hours while he cleans up the house before we head to the hospital. Now, mind you, we are a little intoxicated at this point, and I'm just sitting in our Volkswagen waiting to go with a beautiful gash in my head. And now it's about 2.5 inches on my adult head. So let's just put that in some perspective for you. I get home that night and we get McDonald's. So I am ecstatic because we get McDonald's tonight. I'm so pumped. And I got stickers. So I stick the stickers in my hair, and my dad's trying to give me a bath again to put me to bed. And my mom comes home. Not exactly sure the story that my dad told my mom, but I get sent to bed and I can hear them arguing. And so I sneak out of my room because I'm little at this point and I want to know what's going on. And I'm sitting at the top of the stairs next to our English Springer Spaniel, Mandy. And I can hear my parents arguing. And my dad's like, this wouldn't be an issue if we never would have adopted her. Oof. Okay, so mind you on that. We focus in workers' compensation on psychosocial issues. What do you think a 3-year-old hearing that is going to do for you? So I'm going to pause on that and come back to it in a second. Woo. So the dog. The dog Mandy is like my person at this point. She is my ride or die because she's a dog. Every child needs a dog. So I would go lay on the stairs with Mandy whenever anything happened, whenever my dad was too intoxicated or my mom was upset or whatever had transpired that night, I would go lay with Mandy. This is one of those nights I just laid on Mandy. I'm at the top of the stairs in a split foyer house, and I am simply laying there with Mandy. So flash forward a couple years, and now we're in school, and my parents had always been very, very forthcoming with me that I was adopted. I told everyone because I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I thought it meant that I got chosen to go to my family. So I got chosen to be in a family. Well, guess what? You know how kids and bullying and all that fun stuff happens? So starting when I was little, and I think it was 3rd grade that was the most impactful, and this is kind of where the rest of the story is going to wrap up. I was in art class, and one of the kids was like, so you're adopted? So your parents didn't want you. I had never thought of it that way, minus the night where we had the incident. So now not only do I have my parents talking about how, well, we didn't want her, I bounced to 4 foster families, and I was put up for adoption. And now my peers are challenging me with, hey, guess what? You aren't wanted. Super fun. So let's take the ages of 3 to 7, possibly 8 at this point. And that is the foundation for the script that I got to live for a while, because I didn't know any different. And so when we talk about people who need a champion or just somebody to flip the script, that is where our power lies. So we're back. This is going on at school. I come home on weekends and I'm laying with Mandy because Mandy's my ride or die. She's my girl. And Mandy dies. And I remember I didn't leave my bedroom for the weekend. I tucked myself away. I had a set of twin beds, tucked myself away. And I was like, I am going to just sleep for the weekend. My ride or die just left me. That Monday morning, I woke up and something in me was like, you have a choice here. Here's the Robert Frost poem. Here's a road diverged into the woods, and I'm going to take the one less traveled. I got up that morning, I had a permanent marker and I had a cork board that was in my childhood bedroom. And I wrote on it, most smiles are started by another smile. Be the smile. And I drew a big smiley face. So when I come into the work comp industry and I tell you guys I am glitter and sparkles, I get to be glitter and sparkles because I choose it every day. From the time I was 7 years old, I made that precise decision at that moment that wasn't going to define me. Okay, so my adopted mom had other plans. So the foster families, you go through the system and stuff happens, but then you have a choice of how you're going to take that. Pain has purpose. And in this, that is where you get to be the smile, you get to be the change, and you can help impact other lives. In workers' compensation, we get people at their most vulnerable points where we're going to take a dad out from being able to play with his kids or pick his kids up or whatnot. And we remove people not only from their jobs, we remove them from their life for a specific amount of time. And I know what it feels like to feel lonely and isolated, and I don't want anyone in this industry to feel that way. The foster care system was broken. My mom was trying to change that. I believe the workers' compensation system can be better, and I believe I have the power to change that. I believe you have the power to change that. I believe that every single time that we interact with people within our space, when we work with an injured worker, when we take the time to really figure out what we're doing here and really cultivate our purpose, we can make things better for each other. We can take the time to make things awesome and empowered and inspiring, and we can make the world a better place. And so I leave you with today, that's my story and why I'm so passionate, and I am glitter and sparkles, because I know what darkness feels like. It feels terrible to never understand what family is. You can have parents. Parents do not equal family. And there was no way that I was going to let my childhood bleed onto my daughter. And it was time for me to flip the script and change the life. My dad was an alcoholic. He still is an alcoholic. Bless his soul. I wish him the very best. My dad's father was an alcoholic. My mother's mother was an alcoholic. At some point, you guys, we wake up and we flip the script. That's not the script I want for my daughter. And it took a lot of soul searching. And David Vittoria, thank you for speaking today. David helped me realize, hey, you can define your own story, figure out what your story is. And so it takes time to dig in and figure that stuff out. So I leave you guys with this today. Number one, love yourself. Because when you love every part of you, even the really icky parts, and all of us have icky parts as much as we want to be raised fever cleaver. We have icky parts within ourselves. Figure out a way to love them so that you can let it go and you can be free from whatever is coming your way. The kids can't hurt me anymore. My parents didn't want me. Okay, come at me with something better. I'm here to make sure that we as an industry do good things to make people move forward and to understand that we see you, we hear you, and we acknowledge you. I have a scar on my forehead that gets to remind me of that every day. And so I ask you to take whatever position you hold here, whatever impact you can possibly have to make somebody's life better, do it, because you are the reason that we can change the industry, and you are the reason that we can move forward. How do you get a horse to drink the water? You show up as your authentic self every single day and stay true to who you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you so much. we've now reached the end of our journey, and we've experienced a full range of all the emotions that go along the way to create heroes. So I'm going to try this. We'd all come up to this stage if we were in Huntington. So let's see if we can have everybody turn on their webcams one more time. And we've got a chat feature. So, instead of that rousing applause, let them know it on the chat. Let them hear you. It has been a heck of an experience today to listen to all of these stories. Thank you to all of our presenters. Thank you to Laude for giving us this opportunity, and thank you for all the people that take their energy that goes into making this happen. You're different now. You've heard these 6 stories. You have 6 models of heroic behavior. Take them, internalize them, and think of your story. We want to be together as best we can. Next year. We want to hear from you. We want you to participate and keep this ripple effect going. Thank you to all of our presenters. Thank you to WorkCompCentral. Thank you to everyone who has honored David DePaolo's memory and in carrying this great fine tradition of the People's Choice Awards. I'm going to close it here. Thank you, all of you. We will see you later on. And again, congratulations on being a finalist for the People's Choice Awards, and good luck to all of you in the voting. Take care.